Hey, welcome back. So how did you find that? What does your client need? Of course, you should know that because you know that you can help them with that. And then what are the steps that you need to take them through for that? Now, here's the magic. As I said before, you could stick here now. You could stick here at the speech, but we want to go deeper. We want to have some depth. We want to have content that can help you to create online programs, do 3-day seminars or week seminars or retreats, right? So you need to have some depth and some content. So we want to stop accepting a SMART goal, a KISS as an acronym, just speech. We want to go deeper. So first of all, we're going to take each of the steps that you've got and we're going to go into what does the client need to be able to start, in this case, their presentation in a great way. So underneath here, what I've got is I've got a number of steps. So for example, I know that some people can start a presentation by asking a question, right? So they could ask a question. And that question has to be something that grabs the audience, right? We'll talk about that a little bit later. What else could they do? Well, we could just leave it at that. But of course, that's not a system. That's just one point, right? So what else could they do? Well, they could come on to some music, for example. Because music, as you know, really kind of gets emotions going, doesn't it? What else could they do? They could come on and they could have a quote, okay? So these are just some examples of how you could start a presentation. Now, I know that when you want to start a presentation, you've got to make an impact, right? So I look at this, I've got 3 things here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go, okay, I got 2 cues. So can I find a cue for the word music? Cues, just so you know, are not that easy. And there's a little bit of a hint here. If it's a high scoring Scrabble and cue is 10, then you're probably going to struggle to get a lot of the same words beginning with the same letter. Whereas if you've got something like an S or an A that has only got 1 point in Scrabble, it's easier generally, right? That's just a rule. So, okay, I go, okay, well, this makes sense, but I don't think I'm going to get another Q in here. So I could potentially put this into, you know, a Q or maybe a Q and an M, but it's a bit loose. So then I can go, okay, well, can I look at this in a different way? So for example, with a question, I could say, oh, that's a survey, you know, raise your hand if, right? We'll talk more about that later on. Music could be a song and a quote could be a saying. Now, interestingly enough, that may then lead you to think, oh, hang on, there's something else though. So maybe I could start with some statistics. Or maybe I could start with like a little short story. So can you see how now I've expanded what I originally had, and I've also got 5 letters beginning with the same letter here. This is what you need to do for each of these points moving forward. So now for start, I go, if I want to teach my audience how to start their presentation in a way that's going to grab and engage the audience, these are the 5 options that they can use. Thumbs up to the screen, even though I can't see you, if that makes sense. Great, good. Then here's the magic. What we want to do now, it's like these are the ingredients to a recipe. But what's the name of the recipe? So we can get rid of this because we're going to replace the questions, music and quote because that didn't quite work for us. And what we're going to do now is we're going to say, okay, so if we're talking about starting a presentation, and I know that you can do a survey, a song, a saying, you can have some stats, or you can have a little story. Not your story, by the way, but we'll talk more about that later. What does the client get in terms of starting the presentation if they have this choice here? Well, I want them to grab their audience. So I want them to shock their audience. So it's not going to be raise your hand and it'd be a boring question. Look, if you've been to any of my events, you know I start with raise your hand if you love the feeling of having a really, really great orgasm, right? And people start laughing, don't they? Why do I do that? One, because I want to shock them, because they're not expecting that from, you know, 60-year-old Cheryl here. And also, people are scared of public speaking. I want them to realise that public speaking can be fun, right? So it's a bit of a shock. And what is it then? So it's the shock beginning, yeah? So it's the shock beginning strategy. So what have I got here? Well, what I've got here is strategy. Oh, no. Tell why I spell. I can't spell right necessarily. So it's called the shock beginning strategy. That's the name of the recipe to help my clients to be able to have a great start to their presentation. And the ingredients are the S's of survey, song, saying, stats and story. Okay, makes sense? This naming, stamping, if you like, of the ingredients to give it this recipe name has 3 parts to it. The first one is an adjective, or an adjective, I think is the correct word, an adjective. Then it's what are you doing? And then you have to put these into a system, strategy, module, method, plan, recipe, whatever you want to call it. So otherwise, if I just said, oh, this is the shop beginning, it sounds like a concept, right? Doesn't sound like it's a thing. So we want to turn this into a thing. And what I mean by thing is something that sounds like a modular, something that's packaged in a box that your clients can buy. So this is the shop beginning strategy. Good if you can have a couple of letters that begin with the same, a couple of words that begin with the same letter, because it just gives it a little bit of alliteration. So I can now say, so I help my clients to become confident speakers. I help them initially to be able to start their presentation in a way that is engaging, because if they don't start it in a way that's engaging, their audience could be completely disconnected from them and they'll never want to work with them. I developed the shock beginning strategy to help my clients to do that. And this is a very simple but highly effective 5-step process. See how it sounds like now I've got something to sell without giving away too much, without overwhelming the audience, but keeping them on track so they know I've got a product or a service that can help them if they want to know how to start their presentation quickly, easily, effectively. Okay? So go back to your workbook now, go to the next workbook and start to develop what are the steps that your clients need, which you should already have from before. And now what are the steps under each of these that they need for each of those individual topics that you had before. Then you're going to name them. Now, I want you to go ahead and do that. Remember, of course, we have the Q&A sessions and we also have the sessions where you're going to deliver this to camera. So make sure you're booking for the next Q&A because this is chewy, but it is very effective. And once you get it, it'll just click. So do what you can in the workbook. Come along with your questions. I look forward to seeing you online soon. And then we can help to create your IP, which is, of course, for your client, for your workshops, this is also great for like advertising, you know, when you want to get out there because you know what topics you're going to talk about. For the foundation of your book, it's your intellectual property. This is what is going to help you to raise your profile and make you money online, offline, while you sleep, and just be an all-round amazing thing. So that's why we started with the framework first of all. So go ahead, do that right now, and I'll see you on the Q&A.